from the CyberHub bunker and studio. You're tuning in to the CyberHub podcast Tech Corner. And now, join me in welcoming your host and CISO, James Azar.
Hello, boys, girls, men, women, those that have served our nation and those who have not, peeps, geeks, and nerds of all kinds. Welcome to today's Tech Corner Veteran November episode. This week is very special for me. My birthday was yesterday, and kicking off my Veteran November birthday post week, which is this week, also happens to be Thanksgiving on Thursday. So I decided that for the next 4 or 5 episodes until Thanksgiving, I'm going to feature people who have helped me be a better person in cyber, who are also veterans. And today joining me is the one, the only, David Vaughn. If you have not listened to my show before and this is your first time, David's been on the show before. In fact, multiple times. Right, David?
That is correct. We always have a good time when we get together.
Yeah, it's horrible when we get together because we go down rabbit holes that Lord knows what we end up finding. Before we get started on today's podcast, though, folks, if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell, and that way you'll be able to see all of our episodes. And make sure you catch all of our previous episodes. If you're listening on your favorite podcast listening platform, make sure to subscribe right now to our podcast. You can find all of our content at cyberhubpodcast.com. And that's it. I'm done. I promise, Dave. That's it. You know how it is.
Oh, I don't get my opportunity to put in like my commercials.
You want to do your?
No, I have nothing to advertise.
Call 1-800 David Vaughn. 1-800 David Vaughn.
Yeah, no. I could put in a couple of shameless plugs, but no. This is your show, man. So.
Yeah, no shameless plugs on my show, please. Unless I approve them first and I get a cut at the end.
Oh yeah, sure, no problem.
That's the only way to do it. So
checks in the mail.
Checks in the mail. I love it. So David is a very interesting case in our Veteran November because you're still a reservist.
I am. December 1st will be my 23-year anniversary. And,
Mazel tov.
It flew by. I think as you can tell, I'm a warrant officer, right? So this is the rising eagle. It's our symbol. But being a warrant officer is really probably the best thing I've ever done for my career, both military and the non-military world. Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk about that. What branch of the military did you enlist in? How has your career progressed? And when did you get involved in cyber?
So I've always been involved with computers, right? Cyber's only been cyber since 2007. When I graduated, at first I'll dial it back. So I joined the Army, but I joined the Army in a program called Split Ops. So in between my senior summer, I went to basic training. I came back, finished my senior in high school, and then I rolled out to college. But I went to Fort Seal, Oklahoma, for basic training, and
ugly
it was
yellow buildings.
Exactly. But it was the last year of all male basic trainees, right? And it was summer surge. So they had more people there than they had barracks. So we were in GP medium tents, and it was ridiculous. I mean, it was hot as could be, and really will be forever etched in my brain. Coming over the railroad tracks in the cattle cars, they stop and they get everybody out and they give you an example of what's to come. And then you get the shell shock of what happens next, right? So, having to have your bags in the right place, and it is an unforgettable experience. It was probably the first time in my life where I didn't make any smart-ass comments or step out of line because I was in fear for my life, right? A great experience. But I think in 2006 is when I became a warrant officer, and prior to that, just before becoming a warrant officer, I was an MP, and was actually one of the very first reservists activated on September 11th. It was a complete accident. I was actually at Fort Bragg making up a drill that I had missed. And when I came into the office, there was a handful of people watching this little black and white TV. And very naively, I came in. I was like, "Oh, cool. What movie is that?" And they're like, "That's the news." And I was like, "Oh." And within a couple hours, I was put on emergency call-up orders. And that's when things really changed for me, right? I was an IT person. I was just getting started. I just started a job at Nortel. Overnight I became a police officer, right? Like at Fort Bragg in a garrison, doing like real police work. I saw everything from, little girls getting their bikes stolen to domestic violence to even homicides, right? It was the most diverse thing, and really grew an appreciation for the hard work that law enforcement does. I mean, it's very evident now that there is those that dislike police officers. There are those that are scared of police officers. I saw all of that, right? And that was back in 2001, 2002. I was playing pool with this guy for almost 2 hours, and he's like, "Oh, so what's your MOS?" I said, "Oh, 95 Bravo." He goes, "Isn't that an MP?" I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "I'll see you later." Puts his pool stick up. We've been playing pool for 2 hours, right? Like he disliked cops that much. So I mean, I'll never forget seeing times like a parent telling their kid, they see me in the PX, and like, "If you don't behave, I'm going to make that MP. I'm going to let him take you away." And I'm like, that it really vilified us in that regard. But I don't take it away that there are some people that do stupid things out there and make bad choices. I think that's like that in any career field. But that experience in being a police officer, really, really pointed me to becoming a warrant officer. And for those that aren't aware what a warrant officer is, it's a technical expert, right? So every branch within the Army has warrant officers, and I started out as a signal warrant, and then I branch transferred into cyber. So that's where I'm at now.
So that's awesome. We're not going to talk about a lot about what you're doing today, because we just aren't going to, and not because we don't want to share it with you folks, but because just as just as our friendlies are listening to this, our adversaries can also do that, and so we're not going to go down that route today, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense to me. And I'll say hello to our adversaries, ni hao, and all the good stuff, right? So
كاك ديلا ديفوشكاس. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. شو أخباركن اليوم؟ إيش لونك؟
Yeah, all of that good stuff. It's funny that you say that, right? About adversaries looking and listening in. We don't give enough credit to the adversary. Sometimes, working in cyber, you look at an adversarial tactic, and you have to just sit back and be like, "Well played." That was that was well played. Good job. I found you, but well played.
Well, you gotta appreciate the fact, right? That when they do something good, to go, "Okay, well done. I found you. Well done, but now I know."
Yeah.
Right.
Or do you want them to know that you know? I mean, there are some times where I think that unnecessary flexing occurs just so that you can say, "Hey, we know what you did."
Well,
right?
So the war, right? This is very interesting, because I actually did a podcast on this not long ago. I think last week, where I was talking about it was Monday of this week. So we're recording. This is election week, folks. It's the Friday after election, but on Monday I did a Biden versus Trump on cybersecurity policy breakdown. Where do they stand on cyber? And the Obama-Biden administration was very much into naming and shaming, like flexing, like, "We see you, China. We know what you did, Jim Jong-un," and you're like, or Danny Chu, and so the Trump administration, though, doesn't name and shame. When it does name, it's been predominantly in a DOJ indictment. And that's simply to do a DOJ indictment, then issue an Interpol, and then put them and their respective governments on notice. It's also
we've talked about that before, though, James.
Yeah,
that's a slippery slope when you start indicting nation-state actors, right? Because just like the bad guys, we have folks that do those type of activities as well. It's really only a matter of time before one of our own gets rolled up that's traveling abroad for some alleged action that they may or may not have been involved in.
I think the difference with that is strong when we're not arresting those people, right? I mean, we've done that with Russia, right? We've done that with Russians over the last 3-4 years, where they fly out for a vacation in Spain and then they're met with federales and several of our FBI agents that put them on a plane and bring them to the U.S. And in Spain and Greece and the country of Georgia, not the state of Georgia, and other stuff like that. We've seen that happen. We haven't seen Russia really do that to Americans. And I think we can debate that, and I don't want to get into that discussion. That's not the point of Veteran November. Sure. But it's a very political. It's about leadership and you know what I mean, and the posture, right? If you're like, I don't know, I just feel like if you tell people like, don't mess with me. If you mess with me, I'll mess you up. They're likely to think 2 or 3 times before they detain an American than if they feel like by detaining an American, they've got a negotiating card. Right.
Yeah. No, I agree with
that. There's an aspect to that. So as you transferred, so when did you go from full active duty to reserve, and kind of talk a little bit about that transition?
Yeah. So all of my active duty time has been mobilized as a reservist. So shortly after that 2-week emergency call up, my reserve unit was mobilized at Fort Bragg. And we did a year there. But during that time frame, I lost my job, my civilian job. Didn't know any better at the time, didn't know that they weren't supposed to do that kind of thing. But I kept volunteering to extend. So I didn't have a job to come back to Raleigh to. And, I just kept volunteering to extend. And I ended up doing 5 years on activated orders at Fort Bragg. And that really, it did a number of things for me, but it told me that I never want to be on active duty for that long. That was for one thing. But that was the nexus for submitting my paperwork to become a warrant officer. So I've also been mobilized and gone overseas twice. I did a Iraq tour with the New Mexico National Guard as a IMA. My battalion commander when I deployed is now the state adjutant general, probably one of the best leaders I've ever served with, Major General Kenneth Nava, a fantastic, phenomenal leader, somebody that I don't think, although he makes mistakes, I never saw the guy ever make a mistake. He was such a phenomenal leader, listened and always leaded from the front. Never asked his subordinates to do something that he wasn't right next to you doing himself. And that was a phenomenal example of leadership that I saw. My last OCONUS deployment, though, was interesting. So I started out in Kuwait, and I was the Defensive Cyber Operations Warrant for Southwest Asia. So I also got to go down to Afghanistan and went to Bagram and Kandahar and a whole bunch of other different places, and got to assess the posture, the cyber posture that we had in those locations. And that was interesting. I mean, I don't know if you had ever made it over to Kuwait or if any of the listeners have been to Kuwait, but anybody that's been there knows that we run generators everywhere, and the sound is deafening, right? When I got to Bagram and I stepped off the plane, it was dead silent. I mean, all the power there is permanent. They took an old Soviet base and turned it into the U.S. base that it is today. But that's the one thing that I'll never forget. It was just how quiet it was. And I was actually there at the best time of the year to be there. The weather was perfect. And it's kind of sad if it wasn't such a war-torn area, it'd be a really beautiful place to go to for a vacation destination. I mean, at the time I was there, you took the weather of Florida with the backdrop of Colorado and mashed them together, and that's what Bagram was. It was absolutely beautiful. But I never got to go outside of the wire in that location. So
I don't think you wanted to go outside the wire. I don't think you wanted to go outside that wire.
No.
Not exactly recommended. Talk a little bit about that civilian kind of transition. You're now kind of you're a reservist, but you also have a civilian job. Talk about that first civilian job as a reservist. What was that like for you?
I think so. The most memorable interview was when I got hired by HP. And the gentleman that was interviewing me, his name is Drew Miller, became a fantastic mentor. We're still friends to this day. But the very first interview was interrupted by a mortar attack, right? So for those that are not aware, when you get mortared, they go into something called River City. They cut all comms. And I was like in the middle of my interview when they cut off comms. So Drew and the other folks that were on this call didn't know whether I was okay, didn't know what had happened. All they know is they heard some loud booms, and then everything went, dead. A couple of weeks later, we got to talk, and we were on a VTC again, and they asked me something I'll never forget, and I always share this story, but they asked me what it was that I feared most. And as a reservist, when you deploy, you're out of work. You're out of the field that you work in, whatever that field may be. You're out of that field for 10, 12, 13 months, however long that deployment is, right? So, and I've always looked at that as the worst part of coming home. Everything that I do when I'm deployed is predetermined. What I'm going to wear, what I'm going to do, how many hours a day I'm going to work. I know that there's not going to be much downtime, if any, and that has only gotten more intense as I've gotten promoted through the ranks. But my answer to him was simple: is that the one thing that I feared most every time was coming home, because I never knew what to expect. I knew that when I came home, I had X amount of days of a paycheck from the military, and then it was back to trying to find work where I was relevant. And the longer I was deployed, or the longer I was out of my industry, I felt like I wasn't as relative as I needed to be, right? So I spent a lot of time on self-development, professional development. Of course, I went and got every cert that you can think of, right? But I still didn't think that was enough, right? Like I was coming back to compete with people that had master's degrees or varying certifications, but had not been out of industry for 13 months. Because although I am an IT guy, a cyber guy in the military, that's not exactly what I do in the civilian industry, every day, right? So my answer to him was pretty simple on that. And unbeknownst to me at the time, they had already decided they were going to hire me. And he replied back to me saying that, thanking me for my service, and then saying, we'd like to be the first to tell you that you have one less thing to worry about when you come home, that we have an offer letter that we just emailed you. And it was one of those things, Gary, because it was the first major pay jump that I had gotten in my career. And when I opened it up, I had to, like, oh, okay, well, I'll take a look at this. But meanwhile, like, I'm doing cartwheels in my head, right? Like to see that number on, and it's one thing that I always tell folks that I provide mentorship to is it may sound corny, but the person that hires you for your job, say thank you to them, right? Not just when they hire you, but every now and then while you're still employed there, say thank you to them, because I know for me that job was pivotal for me in my, not only in my civilian career, but what I learned and who I got to work with and the things that I did while at HP. That was one of the best jobs that I had up until where I'm working at now. shameless plug. But yeah, every time I got deployed or every time I had to go away, the leadership at HP always assured me, one, I was going to have a job. Two, they paid me my salary while I was gone. Those are not things that an employer has to do. USERA only requires an employer to maintain your job. They don't require anything above that, above and beyond. So I obviously I made sure to recognize my leadership for those extra mile efforts that they. There's an award that you can put them in for called the Above and Beyond Act, or Above and Beyond Award from the ESGR is the employment. I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but ESGR is the organization. They look out for the employment rights for Guard and Reserves.
Yeah, shout out to HP for real.
Yeah.
That is ethics and integrity before business. That is country and patriotism before the good almighty profit line. And that's something I wish more U.S. companies would do. Yeah,
absolutely. My current civilian employer now is also very supportive. I mean, since COVID, right, and all the cloud stuff has started happening, I've been a lot more busy than what I would normally be with my military roles and responsibilities. And my current employer has been very supportive of that as well. So, hats off and major thanks to them. I always take the opportunity to say thank you to my current employer and my supervisor. Actually.
Well, it's in good spirit. Currently, David doesn't want to say the name of the company because we said we weren't going to do vendor stuff. But the name of the company he does work for is SpyCloud, and you guys can check him out and talk to David about what they do if you'd like. I'm always for supporting organizations that support our veterans. Last time I saw you, David, was we were sitting in the Marine Corps Hotel in San Francisco. And right before COVID really kicked our back ends and put us on our grounded us at home for a little while, and it was a lot of fun. I think we originally met at RSA, and it feels like every RSA we find 500 reasons to connect, and in between we also do that, and it's fun. What's one of the most difficult things though in transitioning to the civilian role after being in active duty for so long?
Well, one of the things that I've observed in interviewing, right, because I've been in a people manager role or two, and I always look for veterans, right? It's a no-brainer, right? You get somebody that is transitioning, they've had the training, they know leadership, they know chain of command. There's all sorts of things that are just baked in. And it doesn't matter if you serve for 3 years, if you serve for 20 years, those things are institutionalized in every veteran, regardless of branch of service, right? So it's always a plus when you're looking for somebody that you have to rely upon and trust to do something. But one of the things that I've always found kind of entertaining is those that are of higher rank, right? Like, so your lieutenant colonels, your majors, your sergeant majors, right? Like, it's a big reality awakener for them to go from being something really important to starting over, right? And a lot of times, if you're not in a company that's U.S. public centric, right? That rank that you had, all those accolades that you have to hang those up on the door when you come to the new organization. And that's really hard for a lot of people. I mean, I've seen it firsthand where somebody will come in and they're trying to lead the interview. They're not selling what the value add that I know that they're bringing. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been getting interviewed. But that ego check, leaving that at the door, is difficult for some of the senior ranking folks. And that's why I think a lot of them stay U.S. public sector centric, right? Because a flag officer is a flag officer is a flag officer, right? They're always going to be general so and so or admiral so and so, and that rank is, they earned it, 30 plus years of service to get to that point. But U.S. public sector centric employers, that holds a lot more weight, right? Rather than being at a startup that is not centric to U.S. public sector. So that's probably one of the more challenging things, right? Is finding your place and then sticking to it. That probably would be the greatest challenge I've seen so far.
So, given your experience, if you could go back in time and talk to your young self as you were getting ready to take your first civilian job, what advice would you give your young self today?
Yeah, there's so many lessons, and anybody that's listening from my Fort Bragg days will know that the gift of gab and thinking I was the smartest one in the room all the time has been a.
Wait, you still do that now? You still do that now? I don't know I don't know that you want to go back to yourself and talk about thinking you're the smartest guy in the room.
So I have a license plate that I got for one of my cars back in the day that said UCMJ got me. And, I was one of those smart knuckleheads that was a specialist twice. Running my mouth to the wrong folks at the wrong time. I think the wiser me, if I could go back and tell a younger me, is learn when to shut up, right? Learn to listen more. Every leader that I've ever had a tremendous amount of respect for has been a leader that doesn't come in barking, but comes in and listens, observes, takes notes, and then comes back with suggested improvements, right? And sometimes those improvements are home run, and sometimes there's things where we can have lessons learned. But a lesson that the wiser me would tell the younger me is, learn when to shut up, and don't take things personal.
Yeah, especially in the civilian world.
Yeah.
We're almost out of time, David, and I hate that, but I've promised our audience. I've promised 30-minute episodes for this, right? Because these episodes are going out on top of all of our additional content, and so I'd love to do a Joe Rogan style stuff on this on November 30th, folks. So a week from tomorrow, we'll be doing a private Zoom for all veterans to join in. Anyone who wants to come in can actually sign up on our website to attend at cyberhubpodcast.com or contact me directly on LinkedIn or Twitter. If you want to join, it's going to be myself, Brian Lazada, Chris Cochran. We're going to have a few other people joining us, and it's just going to be an open forum for locking down Veteran November. It'll be around 5 or 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You'll see the date in the invite. We're going to jump on a private Zoom call, and we're just going to have a good time. And David, you can definitely join us, man. We're going to be hanging out. It'll be all veterans, and we're just really gonna talk about what we're thankful for, and kind of start to build that InfoSec agnostic veteran community. And my goal is to really, hopefully, by next November, have a few chapters of us. Maybe have one in Dallas, in Atlanta, maybe in North Carolina, that really support the InfoSec community.
That's
and
awesome.
what I mean by that is veterans that are reaching out to bases and building those bridges. So as people are getting ready to get discharged, they can come over to us and we can build a set of resources, help them with job interviews, help them with career skills or picking the right school or what programs to go into, and building some mentorship programs. And really, we need all kinds of people in InfoSec, And we don't just need people who know how to use a computer. We need people that know how to use their mouth. We need people that know how to lead. We need people who know how to think. I think critical thinking is one of the critical aspects of InfoSec that a lot of people don't talk about. But it's
soft skills, right? Soft skills, you can't teach somebody how not to be an asshole, right? So I think
we're trying with you, David. We're trying.
I told you my cool arrow story, so that's I'll never live that one down.
No, you won't. So, since you're, I end every interview asking everyone that same question. What's one thing you love about you loved typically in past tense about your military service, but you're still a reservist, you're still enlisted. You're a lifer at this point. I don't think you're going to leave. I think they're going to kick you out. They're just going to come to you and be like, "Hey, David, you're not in Vermont anymore." Yeah, you're sitting there drooling. Yeah, sitting there drooling on a computer keyboard, going like, "What is this?" Remember in Godfather 2 where he goes and he kills the guy, Robert De Niro, who plays Al Pacino, who plays the Godfather in Godfather 2. He goes and he kills the old Don that killed his family. What is your name? Antonio Andoni.
Yeah. No. But if you're asking what I'm thankful for, really, it's pretty simple. I wouldn't be where I'm at today without the military. I joined the split op program for a reason. It was to break a pattern of a bad upbringing that I was going through. I was involved with all the wrong things at all the wrong times, and the military got me away from all that, gave me a solid education, and put me in a career field that I learned something new every day. I mean, literally every day there is something new that I learn that allows me to be better the next day. And that's really my goal every day, is to try to be better than I was yesterday. Yeah. And I apply that to the military and my civilian job. Brilliant.
David, thank you so much for coming on Veteran November.
No, thanks for having me. Happy birthday to you. So.
Thank you. I'm grateful for a lot of people in my life. I'm grateful to you, and I'm thankful. Since the moment we met, you've made me think different. You've made me appreciate the things that you do. You've been able to explain to me stuff that I didn't understand in a way that would make me comprehend it. Our conversations have always been, I think like it was like the first time we met, it felt like we've known each other for 20 years. It was just like, if you guys want to really catch my first interview with David Vaughn, go to YouTube, find our RSA coverage from 2018 or 2019. Forget which one it was.
It was 18.
It was 18. 2018. And there's my interview with David, and it was one of my funnest interviews of that day.
We just went on forever and ever and ever.
We did, and we were talking about everything. But it was like we'd known each other for 20 years. And I think that's one thing about being veterans in our nation, right? Being part of that brotherhood, that camaraderie, is we see each other and it's just on right then and there, right? It's unless you're Air Force, then we kind of look at you weird.
Or jealous envy, right? Of how they get treated better than everybody else.
Right. I always used to joke when Micah was my producer on the show. I always used to joke with Micah, and I'd be like, we'd go get lunch, and I'd be like, I'm sorry, we're getting burger fi today and not a filet. I know that you got used to eating gourmet food in the Air Force, but we Army guys, we'd suffice with an MRE.
I'll never forget, man. When I was in Iraq, and I know we're wrapping up, but I had an E3 airman that was teaching me things, right? Like this guy was wicked smart, but he reported in civilian clothes, which you're not supposed to do. He was wearing a hat that had a Ranger tab on it that said infidel on it, which I thought was hilarious. And I knew as soon as I saw him that we were going to get along just fine. So this guy's teaching me all sorts of PowerShell tricks. And, about 2 or 3 months later, he's like, well, Chief, it was great. I'm on my way out. I'm like, where are you going? You just got here. He's like, yeah, we only deploy for 4 months. And I'm like on month 12 of a 13-month deployment. I was livid at that point. So, but another really important thing, James, as we close out, I know that this is airing on the 22nd, correct?
Correct.
So the 22nd of November is kind of a big deal, right? For suicide awareness.
Yep. 22 a day.
Yeah. I just got called out by a sergeant major, so I will be doing my 22 push-ups later on But I lost 2 soldiers this year that were very, very close, that I helped become warrant officers, and I still talk to their family every week, and it's a shame, right? So anybody that's listening, if you know me, don't know me, you need somebody to talk to, you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on VetSec, VetCon. I'm a part of all those things. Reach out, please, to anybody, and I'm definitely willing and able to listen. So,
If at any point in period in time you feel like you need to talk to someone, reach out to someone. Reach out and ask them, and just talk. I know that sometimes things seem hopeless or things get difficult, and you feel like there is no place. And the reason I did Veteran November, part of it is to inspire you to understand that there is a way for anyone of any background to get somewhere. And we in the InfoSec community welcome anyone with open arms, and we'll open doors, we'll create opportunities, and we'll help you. If it's a living that you need, if it's the brotherhood that you miss, or you know, whether it be male or female, and I'm sorry for only doing it in the he version of it, but reach out, like David said, and talk. You can reach out to myself. You can reach out to anyone who's been on the show, and I know that they would drop everything and anything and help in a moment's notice.
yeah.
So
Yeah. I've had some dark
definitely.
times myself. I've achieved a lot of success, but that success has come with sacrifices. I've been divorced twice. I've been there, had those dark thoughts, and went and got the help that was necessary, and surrounded myself by friends and family that reassured me that my life had value, and there's no shame in asking for help. It's a lot better than your child walking in and discovering that you've made a choice that you can't unchange. So
Yeah, that is so true, and we'll end with that, folks. Really, if you need help, reach out. And David, thank you for sharing that about yourself. It's never easy, In a lot of places we try to play on because of the era of social media and all that. We try to show just how successful we are, and we fail to show where we're struggle. And so the idea is we've all struggled. I think we've all been in places where we've ended relationships. We've things just don't quite work out. The plan doesn't always work the way it does in the military. And even the plans in the military don't always work like the way they're supposed to work in the military. Yeah. But there's no reason whatsoever to think that that's the end of the road for you. You've got people I heard that have struggled and have gone through, the difficult, processes, things, so forth. So, yeah, I mean, you got called out. 22 a day. That's a real number, folks.
Yeah.
And
I had to make sure I could do 22 push-ups.
well,
but thankfully I keep my PT standards within the range that I need to.
well, just do your 22 push-ups, challenge someone else, and pass it down. And
I plan on calling out 22 people at the same time. I've already got a list made right here on my desk. So I got 2 generals on that list that I know pretty well. Gonna definitely try to call some awareness to 22 November. So
yeah, 22 November, folks. David, thank you again. Folks, I know this went a little bit longer than promised, but I think the last 10 minutes might have been the most authentic of the show. And so with that being said, please share this. If you have a family member, a son, a daughter, a nephew, a niece, a brother, a dad who's struggling and you don't know where to start for help, reach out to any one of us and we'll gladly put forth our resources and help them get out of whatever rut they're in or whatever moment they feel like they're in. Don't stay silent. Don't think it's going to, pass on its own. In most cases, it does not. They do need help and they need some encouragement. And who better to give it to them than the people who've been through what they've gone through? So,
absolutely.
That's really important. All right, folks, that's it. David, thank you so much, buddy. We can do this
Thanks for having
forever. And we can. So, folks, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Thank you so much. It's Thanksgiving week. So, we talk about 22 a day and what we're thankful for. And people go around the table on Thursday and they break a turkey and they're all grateful for all things, but be grateful to the men and women who put on that uniform. There's men and there's families today in this country this week that are going to be planning another holiday without their loved ones who are KIA or still MIA, who didn't make it home. And remember those people and be thankful to those families whose loved ones made the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom, for our ability to be in this nation, and for all of our shortfalls and all the things that have gone on this month, and I don't know where we are with the elections by the time this airs. But for all the things that have gone on, just remember we live in the greatest country on earth, that we have a thriving democracy, and that we'll get through all of this stuff no matter what happens. It's not the end. It's only the beginning. And while we're not perfect, the people in our nation make it a much better place to live, and the number one country in the world that everyone wants to go to. The American dream is alive and well. People want to be here. That's thanks to our armed services. That's thanks to our freedoms. And just remember that this week as we kind of hone in on Thanksgiving and spending time with our loved ones. All right, that's it, guys. Thank you. Stay healthy.
Thanks.
Happy
Thanks,
Thanksgiving, and stay
You as
cyber
well.
safe.
Make sure to subscribe to our podcast and share it with your friends and colleagues. And get all the latest information at cyberhubpodcast.com.